So a lot of people have been requesting that I do a video on how I make MuseScore look like the standard film scoring sheets that you can see, like this, for example. This is pretty much what's standard in the film scoring industry, and as you can see, it has a lot of things that MuseScore, you might not realize it has them at first glance. You've got the large time signatures, you've got the instrument names being a little different than what we're seeing here, and there's a myriad of other things, such as the measure numbers being at the top, slightly different formatting and all that. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can make MuseScore look as close as possible to the standard kind of film scoring template you'd see in Finale or Sibelius. So the first thing we have to do, I just started out with a symphony orchestra template because that's essentially the same instrumentation that you'll see in any kind of like Hollywood orchestral film scoring. But you can select the instruments that you want specifically, and it'll all work the same. First thing we're going to actually do is set the key signature to nothing because most of these film scores, especially the John Williams film scores, which is what this example is from, they don't actually have key signatures. The music isn't really rooted in a specific key, and there's no need to make it a little more confusing for the players when it changes harmony so much. So you can add a key signature if you want, but it's just not typical. So the first obvious thing that you are going to see, we don't have the large time signatures, and right now they're appearing on every single stave. And to change that, we have to go into the Style menu under Format, go down to Clefs, Keys, and Time Signatures, and we're going to change the time signatures to be across the staves and change the numerical style so it looks like this. Going to increase the scale. This is about an estimate of what it would be in a Finale or Sibelius template, but it looks pretty much accurate, and it's not the most important detail. So after this, all of this stays the same. You're not going to change anything here. What is going to change, what you might notice is there's 4 time signatures in this score, and here there's only 2, and that's because you actually have to go to the layout panel and add system markings. We're going to add 2 of these and drag one of them down to be right above the horns, and this one down to be right above the timpani. And now we have 4 time signatures, one for each instrument family. So the way the formatting basically works is you have 1 time signature at the top of each family, and it should stay the same whether you add more instruments, just as long as you keep the time signatures staying in the same place, which is above each of the top instruments of the family. So now that we have this, the next thing we're going to change is the measure numbers because right now in this score, they're appearing above the staff here, and we don't have them at all apart from being at the top of this page. So we're going to go into Style again, go to Measure Numbers, and we're going to change measures so they appear every single measure, and we show the initial measure number. And this will make it so they're appearing like so, but that's definitely not what we want as the final product. We have to go into Edit Text Style, increase the size to about 12-point font, change the offset a little bit so they're higher up as to not interfere with notes that might go above the staff. Then we're going to add a rectangular frame with 0.50 padding. This is optional, but what you can do is change the font to Times New Roman as well as the font for basically every other element in the score because Times New Roman is what Finale uses, MuseScore uses Edwin by default, and it looks pretty much similar, but if you really want to make this be like an almost exact replica of Finale's film scoring templates, you can change the font to Times New Roman. Right now, the issue is that most film scores are not going to have measures this closely packed together. So what we're going to do, we're going to go and add a page break here, and that will space it out much more nicely. Then we're going to go back to Style and change the measure numbers so they align to the measure. And now they will be centered, and this is pretty much the closest you can get to this. There could be some slight changes. Maybe these could be bolded, but it's all down to personal preference. And the one thing I'm pretty sure MuseScore cannot do is to have this line going through them and have the measure numbers also repeating at the bottom and above the strings. So it's not a perfect replica, but it's close enough, and it gets the job done because these big measure numbers are really helpful for conductors when they need to keep track of where they are. So the other thing we're going to change, if you look in this score, you can see that all the instruments, instead of just having their names be like on each stave, they're actually centered in the instrument group that they're in, and we only have the parts on the actual stave. So MuseScore doesn't have a great way to do this. You can technically center instrument names by adding another staff, and then they will automatically be centered, but we cannot add text to just align with the actual stave. So if I were to add, like, this is a bad example because violas wouldn't typically have parts, but as you can see, it kind of aligns, but it's very tricky to get it to work well, and it just ends up looking ugly. So what we have to do, I did not mean to do that. I'm just deleting violas. Anyway, what we have to do is we have to manually go in here and change the instrument names. But before we do that, we have to change a bit of formatting for the actual part names because otherwise it's going to be really weird based on all the spacing and stuff. So we're going to go back to text styles and then we're going to go to instrument names. You have to change this for both long and short parts. And I'm going to change it to Times New Roman and size can change to 10.5, 0.90 line spacing, and then we're going to align the text with the baseline. So bit of subtle changes already. You'll see how it helps more as we change stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and change that same stuff for the short names, which of course appears on all the other pages apart from the first page. So now that we have this, basically what you have to do, I'd advise making a template for this sort of thing because you do not want to be changing all these settings manually every single time you make a score like this. You just go in and basically recreate what it would look like. So if I go like this, you're going to see we have basically the part names appearing on the stave and then disappearing in the middle. And then for an example, if you had piccolo, you change this. Right now, it's a little spaced weird. That's because the instruments are not really the same number of staves that you'd have on a typical film score. So if I were to go ahead and add like some more percussion, then it is going to increase the size and go like this. So what you want to do when stuff gets really spaced closely together, you can go into page settings and you can change the staff space to allow yourself for a lot more space like this. And yeah, you can see it's pretty much spaced the way we want it. Obviously got to zoom in because at this scale things get pretty small. So you basically continue doing this for all the instruments. There are a few general rules if you don't want to have to consult a template like the finale ones. You can see if there's a different instrument, like we have flutes here and piccolo here, you are going to name the piccolo. But if we just have another oboe, like this third oboe, it's just going to be like that. And you can indicate that these are all oboes. Um, it's basically going to remain the same for horns. MuseScore does name the instruments slightly differently than Finale does. As you can see, we're going to have F horn and B flat trumpet instead of just horn and trumpet and B flat. So you can change that if you want. It's just a matter of copying and pasting the symbols and switching stuff up. I think now would be a good time to mention that none of this will work unless you're in MuseScore 4.5 or higher. Large time signatures, which are like the main important thing, were added in 4.5, so it will not work in any version below that. Basically, all you have to do is add the part names after this, and if you want, you can, again, go into Style, Text Styles, and change all the text to Times New Roman, so you really have like the full finale template experience. So if I were to just make up like a random Q name right now and italicize and bolded, and yeah, that basically looks like what it would look like. Of course, this needs to be changed to Times New Roman. A lot of the formatting is like not perfect. You have these percussion staves, which you wouldn't typically have. You'd have percussion staves like these. So if you're using like a symphony orchestra template, get rid of these and just use these mixed percussion staves instead. But yeah, that's essentially it. if you have like any more questions about how to do stuff in MuseScore or stuff that I didn't really show how to do in this video specifically, be sure to let me know because I can definitely make a lot more tutorials like this one. So yeah, I hope this helped you out and will definitely help you use MuseScore in a more possibly professional manner after Finale's discontinuation. So yeah, if you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified of more content that I keep posting like this. And yeah, have a good day.